I'm 70, and I avoid people now. At first glance, that might sound like bitterness, or maybe sadness. But stay with me, because what I've found at this age isn't emptiness, it's peace, and I want to share with you why. Hello, dear friends. Turning 70 is a milestone, a quiet but mighty moment that no one really prepares you for. It crept up on me, like a gentle wave on a familiar shore. One minute you're in your 20s, brimming with plans and energy, charting your future with wide eyes and eager hands. And the next, you're waking up in a body that doesn't always feel like yours. A body that carries the echo of decades in its bones. Your memories start to feel more vivid than your calendar. Life slows, then shifts. Priorities rearrange themselves quietly but permanently. And somewhere in that shift, I noticed something unexpected. I've started avoiding people. Now, don't get me wrong, this wasn't always the case. In fact, I used to be incredibly social. I was that person, the dependable one, the one who remembered every birthday, hosted the holiday dinners, volunteered at the community center, helped neighbors, and always showed up. I lived for connection. I believed that being surrounded by people was the highest expression of a full life. But as I've aged, something changed. It didn't happen overnight. It was subtle, a quiet pulling away, a shift in how I spent my time, and more importantly, who I spent it with. And for the longest time, I thought it was just me. Maybe I was becoming cold. Maybe something was wrong. But then, I began to listen. I began to talk to others my age, and what I discovered was, this quiet retreat isn't unusual. In fact, it's more common and more necessary than many people realize. Chapter 1. Time feels more precious than ever. Let's begin with what hits hardest. Time. At 70, time has changed shape. It doesn't stretch out endlessly ahead of me like it did when I was young. Back then, time was a river with no visible shore. I wasted it freely, idle conversations, shallow relationships, late nights spent chasing approval or distractions that held no meaning. I gave time away like candy, never worrying there'd be a shortage. But now, time is sacred. It is finite, measurable, unforgiving, beautiful. It's a companion, one that walks beside me, quietly reminding me that each moment is a choice. I think about time in the early mornings, sipping my coffee while the sun gently rises, in the rustle of trees during my afternoon walks, in the hush of evening light as I sit in my favorite chair, wrapped in memories. Those small, quiet moments, they feel richer now. They carry a kind of weight they never used to. They are no longer filler, they are life itself. I used to believe a full life meant doing more, seeing more, being around more people. But here's the truth. The more I did, the more I lost myself. Life doesn't get fuller by being louder. It becomes fuller by being deeper. Now I choose carefully, intentionally. I give my time to people and places that feed my spirit. I'd rather share silence with someone who understands me than endure small talk in a crowded room that leaves me feeling more alone than if I'd stayed home. I've become protective of my time, not because I fear death, but because I've finally grasped how valuable life truly is. When you're young, you think there's always tomorrow, to fix things, to call back, to make amends, to say, I love you. But when you're 70, you know the tomorrows don't stretch out forever. And strangely, that realization doesn't make me sad. It makes me intentional. I no longer waste hours on drama. I don't chase validation or force relationships that exhaust me. I focus on what truly matters, my health, my joy, and the people who bring warmth into my life without asking me to set myself on fire to keep them comfortable. That, dear friends, is freedom. Chapter 2. Relationships change. And so do we. As the years pass, something quietly happens to your relationships. They begin to shift. Some grow deeper, richer with shared memories, laughter that needs no backstory, and a kind of emotional shorthand that only time can create. But others? Others fade. They vanish like breath on a mirror. Not always with conflict, often with distance, with life pulling people in different directions. At 70, I've come to accept what younger me resisted. Not all relationships are meant to last forever. And you know what? That's okay. When I was younger, relationships were everything. I thrived in social circles, friends, coworkers, neighbors, distant cousins. I kept them all close. I'd remember birthdays, plan parties, help when no one asked. I wanted to be the glue that held people together. I wore that identity like a badge of honor. But here's the hard truth. I was pouring from a cup I never refilled. Over time, I started to notice how much energy it took to keep certain connections alive. And worse, how rarely that energy was returned. People drift, life changes. Sometimes, heartbreak ends a connection. Other times, it's just a slow, silent unraveling. I used to take those losses personally. I'd lie awake, wondering, what did I do wrong? Why didn't they stay? But now I see the bigger picture. People come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And part of growing older gracefully is learning to let go of those who were never meant to stay past their season. The friends who once felt like family, but disappeared without a word. The family members who changed in ways you couldn't follow. The acquaintances who no longer feel like home. It's bittersweet. It hurts sometimes. But there's peace in releasing what no longer fits. And here's another truth. It's not just others who change. We change too. I'm not who I was at 40, or even 60. My values have shifted. My energy has limits. My patience has become more selective. I no longer chase chaos disguised as connection. I don't have space for relationships built on obligation or guilt. What I want now is simplicity, kindness, and honesty. I used to think being there for everyone made me a good person, a good friend, a good daughter, a good partner. But now, I've realized something radical. Being good to myself comes first. True relationships are not one-sided. They don't drain you. They don't demand more than you have to give. They nourish. They uplift. They breathe life back into you. Some of the hardest lessons I've learned came from broken trust, from loyalty offered to those who didn't deserve it, from kindness extended to people who saw it as weakness, from love given freely, only to be met with silence, judgment, or betrayal. And yes, those experiences left scars, but they also gave me something I didn't know I needed: boundaries. Now I trust my gut. I recognize red flags sooner. I don't make excuses for behavior that hurts. I've finally stopped trying to shrink myself to fit places I've outgrown. That's the magic of this stage in life. You stop apologizing for choosing peace. You no longer fear the silence. You no longer need approval to say, "No, this doesn't serve me." And for the first time in a long time, you feel free. Chapter 3. Trust becomes more complicated. Here's something I never expected. The older I get, the more delicate trust becomes. In my younger years, I handed out trust like candy on Halloween. I assumed the best in people. I believed that if you gave love, it would come back. That kindness was always reciprocated. That loyalty meant something. But life taught me otherwise. Now at 70, I don't hand out trust easily. I don't wear my heart on my sleeve like I used to. And no, it's not because I've become bitter or hardened. It's because I've lived long enough to know how painful it is to trust the wrong person. Over the years, I've been betrayed by people I never imagined could hurt me. Friends who disappeared the moment I needed help. Family members who used silence as a weapon. Colleagues who took my ideas and called them their own. People who mistook my generosity for gullibility. And the hardest part? Most of the wounds didn't come from enemies. They came from those I called mine. When that happens enough times, something inside you changes. You either close off completely, or you get smarter, more cautious, more discerning. I chose the second path, but caution comes with a price. These days, when someone new enters my life, my instinct isn't to open the door, it's to peek through the peephole. What do they want from me? Why now? Are they genuine? Or just another storm in disguise? It's not a mindset I enjoy. In fact, sometimes I miss the innocence I used to have, the softness. But experience taught me to build a gate, not a wall. A gate that opens slowly, carefully, after someone proves they belong on the other side. And still, here's the truth I've come to embrace. Trust isn't just about them. It's about me. It's about trusting my instincts. Trusting that gut feeling when something feels off. Trusting that it's okay to walk away even if it's uncomfortable. Trusting that self-protection isn't selfish. It's survival. I've also learned something surprising. While people have broken my trust, others have slowly helped rebuild it. Not with grand gestures, but with small, consistent kindness. Like the stranger who helped me load groceries in the rain. The neighbor who checks on me during storms without being asked. The nurse who held my hand before a routine exam, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. These moments, they remind me that while trust is fragile, it's not gone. It still lives. Quietly. Waiting for the right person to handle it with care. At this stage in life, trust is no longer about giving everyone the benefit of the doubt. It's about protecting your heart while still believing that goodness exists. It's about letting love in, but only when it knocks gently, respectfully, and without agenda. I've found that it's not about becoming cold. It's about becoming clear. And clarity is one of aging's greatest gifts. Chapter 4. The world feels different now. At 70, the world I live in feels almost unrecognizable from the one I grew up in. It's not just the gadgets, the headlines, or the breakneck speed of progress. It's the subtle, painful shift in how people connect, or don't. I grew up in a time when the word neighbor meant family. We didn't text. We walked across the street. We didn't like photos. We handed them to each other over coffee. We didn't schedule a connection. We lived it. People showed up unannounced, not to interrupt, but to belong. We knew each other's stories, not just birthdays. Help wasn't something you had to ask for. It was already on the way. Now, everything feels rushed, disconnected. People have hundreds of friends, but no one to call when they're grieving. We have faster communication, but thinner conversations. We're connected by screens and more alone than ever. I'm grateful for technology. I really am. I love seeing my grandchildren's faces light up on a video call. I enjoy being able to stay in touch with friends from across the country with a few keystrokes. But I'd trade 10 text messages for one real hug, one hand on my shoulder, one long, meandering talk on a front porch with no notifications buzzing. Technology gave us convenience, but it also robbed us of presence. And that's the shift I feel most. The world now is loud, yet somehow lonelier. Even family time feels different. We gather, but everyone's half elsewhere, scrolling, checking, distracted. I miss the quiet, the slowness, the eye contact, the depth. Sometimes I feel like a relic, like I'm carrying values no one remembers to honor anymore. Things like saying thank you and meaning it, listening without waiting to reply, showing up for someone just because they're having a hard day, not for credit, not for clout, just because you can. It's not that I'm against change. I know every generation shapes the world in its own image, but I can't help longing for the warmth and simplicity we used to have. There was a time when life felt slower, but fuller. There was room to breathe, room to pause, room to feel. Now even silence feels crowded. And let's talk about values. The world today is obsessed with being seen, followers, fame, validation. But when I look around, I often wonder, where did honesty go? Where's kindness? Where's the community? It's not gone, I know that, but it feels buried beneath noise. I've found myself retreating, not in bitterness, but in self-preservation. I avoid the chaos because I want to hold on to what still feels real. The handwritten letters, home-cooked meals, the unfiltered laughter. Some may call that nostalgia, but I call it truth. Because here's what I know. The world may be changing, but I don't have to lose myself inside of it. Chapter 5. Solitude isn't loneliness. Let's get one thing straight. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. I used to fear solitude. In my younger years, the idea of spending a Friday night by myself felt like punishment. I'd fill every moment, plans, people, noise, because I believed silence meant something was missing. But now, at 70, I crave silence. I will protect it. I need it. Because I've learned that solitude, when chosen, is one of the most profound gifts you can give yourself. Loneliness feels hollow, like something or someone is absent, like your heart is reaching out and finding nothing in return. But solitude is full. It's not a void, it's a sanctuary. In solitude, I've discovered a joy I never knew when I was constantly surrounded by people. Like the joy of sitting by a window with a cup of tea, watching the birds flutter to the feeder, or the comfort of hearing a favorite song and singing aloud just for myself, or the quiet bliss of a morning walk, letting the sun kiss my skin as leaves crunch beneath my feet. Those moments don't need witnesses. They're mine, and they're enough. In solitude, I've become more me than I ever was in a crowd. I've reflected, healed, forgiven. I've sat with old memories, not to judge them, but to learn from them. I've made peace with the parts of my life I didn't understand at the time. That kind of clarity doesn't come in noise. It comes in stillness. That doesn't mean I've cut myself off from the world. Not at all. I still delight in seeing my grandchildren's eyes light up when they visit. I cherish catching up with old friends who truly see me. I engage with causes that matter when I choose to. But the key word is choice. Every social interaction, every commitment, every conversation now feels more precious because it's intentional. I no longer say yes out of obligation. I don't show up to please others at the cost of myself. I've stopped keeping dead relationships alive just to feel connected. Because here's what solitude has taught me. The best company you will ever keep is the one inside your own soul. It's in those quiet moments where I finally realized I am enough. I don't need a packed calendar to feel valuable. I don't need to be needed to feel worthy. And I certainly don't need noise to drown out my thoughts, because I'm no longer afraid of what they have to say. That's the shift no one talks about. As you age, you stop performing for the world and start being authentically yourself. You don't need applause. You don't crave attention. You just want peace, wholeness, truth. Solitude has also helped me appreciate relationships more deeply. When I do choose to spend time with someone, I'm fully present. I listen more. I speak with intention. I hold space, not just for others, but for myself in their presence. There's no multitasking, no faking, no rushing, just a shared moment, real and unfiltered. And that is enough. Chapter 6. Why I Avoid People. Now this part might be the hardest for some to hear, but it's also the most honest. At this stage in my life, avoiding people isn't about bitterness or resentment. It's about peace. After 7 decades of giving, helping, sacrificing, and sometimes hurting, I've realized that not every relationship deserves a front row seat in my life. And not every connection is worth the energy it takes to maintain. It's a lesson I learned the long, hard way, but it's one I now carry like armor and grace. For most of my life, I was the person who gave without hesitation. I gave my time, I gave my attention, I gave my heart. Sometimes I gave until there was nothing left for myself. And I did it with love, because I wanted to be dependable, to be liked, to be needed. There was a kind of pride in being the one everyone could count on. But here's what I didn't realize. Being everyone's rock can crush you. Because when you give endlessly without boundaries, you start to vanish in your own story. And eventually, life teaches you what your breaking point looks like. I've been let down by people I trusted. I've been drained by one-sided relationships. I've stayed too long in places that chipped away at my joy because I thought that's what loyalty meant. But now I see it clearly. Avoiding people isn't about shutting down. It's about preserving what's left of my peace. It's about choosing quiet over chaos, depth over drama, and authenticity over obligation. I no longer chase relationships that leave me feeling unseen or unappreciated. I don't make room for those who never ask how I'm doing, or don't care about the answer if they do. I don't pretend anymore. I don't people please. I don't stretch myself thin just to keep someone else comfortable. That's not cruelty, that's clarity. It's not that I don't care about people. In fact, I care more deeply than ever, but I care selectively. I cherish the friends who've stood the test of time, the ones who check in not because they want something, but because they truly care. I nurture the family ties that feel reciprocal, not obligatory. I treasure the rare souls who love quietly, consistently, and without conditions. And those are the relationships I protect with my whole heart. Because I've learned something simple but profound. A smaller circle makes for a deeper life. In some ways, avoiding people has helped me value them more. When I do spend time with someone, it's because I want to, not because I feel I have to. And those moments, they're richer, warmer, more memorable, because they're chosen, not forced. I used to say yes to everything, every invitation, every favor, every need that crossed my path. Now, I say yes to what feeds my soul, and no to what drains it. That's not selfishness, that's survival. And frankly, it's sanity. Chapter 7. Does this sound familiar? I often wonder, am I the only one who feels this way? Is it just me who's grown more quiet, more selective, more protective of my time and energy? Or do others, maybe you watching right now, feel it too? That pull towards stillness, that resistance to noise, that deep longing for something more real and less performative. If you're in your 60s, 70s, or beyond, maybe you've felt it. The slow fading of certain friendships, the loss of patience for shallow conversation, the clarity that comes when you finally stop apologizing for protecting your peace. Maybe you, like me, have started choosing solitude not out of sadness, but out of wisdom. Maybe you've stepped away from people who once defined you because they no longer align with who you've become. And maybe, just maybe, you've discovered the profound truth that less truly is more. Fewer obligations, fewer expectations, fewer people draining your light, and in return, more peace, more authenticity, more time for what matters. I spent so much of my younger life trying to meet everyone's expectations. I wanted to be the good one, the reliable friend, the doting relative, the yes-sayer, the peacemaker. And for a while, I thought that was love. I thought saying yes to everyone else meant I was saying yes to life. But here's what I've learned. You can't pour from an empty cup. And if you spend your years bending to please others, you risk breaking apart in silence. Now I've stopped apologizing. I've stopped feeling guilty for choosing myself. I've stopped explaining why I'd rather stay home with a book than attend another gathering that feels like noise. Because I finally understand, this is not selfishness, it's self-respect. And if you feel the same way, if you found yourself stepping back, pulling inward, redefining what connection means to you, let me say this clearly. You are not alone. This isn't a weakness. It isn't bitter. It isn't giving up. It's growing into your truth. Some people thrive in big social circles, even into their golden years, and that's beautiful. But others, people like me, find joy in smaller spaces, in fewer, deeper conversations, in silent mornings, honest friendships, and being exactly where we're meant to be. This chapter of life isn't about proving your worth through busyness. It's about coming home to yourself. So if you find yourself avoiding people, choosing quiet, or craving distance, don't see it as a loss. See it as a return to yourself, to your peace, to your truth. Chapter 8. Embracing this chapter. At 70, I've stopped seeing life as a series of endings. Instead, I've come to realize it's a series of beginnings. Each stage brings its own lessons, its own challenges, its own beauty. And this one? This quiet, reflective, slow-burning season of life? It might just be the most profound yet. This chapter isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with trophies or milestones, but it whispers in the morning light. It smiles through a grandchild's laughter. It holds your hand when you sit with old memories and finally feel peace instead of pain. When I was younger, I lived with urgency, always chasing, always striving. I thought joy was out there, waiting for me in a title, a destination, a someday that never quite came. Now I don't chase. I savor it. I've traded ambition for awareness, restlessness for presence, proving for being. This chapter is about savoring, not surviving. It's about finding joy in the small things, a breeze through the open window, the smell of something warm in the oven, the softness of your favorite sweater, the quiet knowledge that no matter what comes next, you're okay. It's also about reflection, looking back, not with regret, but with gratitude. Gratitude for the moments that built you, the mistakes that taught you, the heartbreaks that softened you, the laughter that reminded you you're still alive. And yet, it's not just about the past. This chapter is also about possibility. You can still learn, still love, still created, still changing. You are not done. You are simply refined. There's a beautiful freedom that comes with aging, a shedding of expectations. The weight of proving, performing, pretending, it all falls away. You don't have to fit anyone else's mold. You don't have to say yes out of guilt. You don't have to keep what no longer fits. You get to say, "This is who I am now," and finally mean it. You learn the power of no. No to draining relationships. No to outdated roles. No to anything that asks you to abandon yourself to be accepted. And in that no, you create space for what matters most. Peace, love, simplicity, connection, not based on need, but on choice. And gratitude. Gratitude for the very breath in your lungs, for the wisdom etched in every wrinkle, for the chance to wake up today and say, "I'm still here, and I'm still becoming." Because at 70, you stop living for applause and start living for alignment. You stop asking, "What do they think of me?" and start asking, "What do I think of myself?" And maybe, for the first time in your life, the answer is, "I like who I've become." At 70, I've discovered this truth. It's not about how much you do or how much you have. It's about the quality of what you hold close, the moments, the memories, the peace you carry quietly within. I've found joy in simplicity, strength in solitude, and deep lasting fulfillment in letting go of what no longer serves me. Avoiding people isn't about shutting down. It's about protecting the peace I've worked a lifetime to find. And I refuse to apologize for that. If you're walking a similar path, if you've felt yourself changing, choosing solitude, pulling back from the noise, you are not alone. You are honoring your journey. You are listening to your truth. You are choosing a life that feels honest. And that is the most courageous thing you can do. So here's to this chapter, a chapter of reflection, a chapter of clarity, a chapter of quiet courage. May we all walk it with grace. May we embrace it fully, and may we live the rest of our days on our own terms. Now I want to hear from you. Has any part of this conversation resonated with your soul? Was there a moment, a sentence, a realization that felt like it was written just for you? Take a breath, take a pause, and then leave a comment below with one thing you've learned or plan to carry forward. If you found comfort, wisdom, or even just a little peace in today's video, please let me know by commenting with a 1. If it didn't resonate, feel free to leave a 0. Your feedback helps me create the kind of content that supports your journey. And if you haven't already, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Wise Wellness. Together, we are building a space where aging is not something to hide from. It's something to honor. Because you, just as you are, today, are worthy of love, respect, and peace. Thank you for walking this path with me. I'm Dr. Emma, and I'll see you in the next chapter. Take care.